Hi. Okay,
All yours.
great. Okay, hi Aditi. Thanks so much for coming and agreeing to be a guest on the webinar. So I'll get to you in a minute to introduce you, and then of course you can introduce Saathealth. So
Sure.
hi everyone, and who all are there and who all may see it later on while when we sent out the recorded form. Thanks for coming to the webinar where we talk about how to build a culture of productivity while working remotely. It's a topic that's very close to our hearts, and in fact, it's a topic that came up as the one people want to hear the most about in a poll that we ran recently. So we thought that we'll bring together some of our experience in running remote organizations, and we'll bring to you somebody who also has been running remote organizations for some time now, and that's Aditi. So Aditi is co-founder of Saathealth, and she's a serial entrepreneur along with her partner, her husband, and the two of them have absolutely a very interesting take on running organizations. They work with remote teams, blended teams, a whole lot of that. So Aditi, do you want to introduce Saathealth and what it does?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. And thanks especially to Flexibees, a partner that I've worked with very closely and I'm very happy to be associated with. Hi, my name is Aditi, as Shreya introduced me, and I run a company called Saathealth. Saathealth started out as a mobile first platform to serve the needs of underserved populations in the slums of Mumbai and Delhi. We aim to reach these populations with behavior change content on health, nutrition, and early childhood development. Slowly, we have expanded the scope of Saathealth. We now do various deployments of Saathealth-like platforms, and we reach a variety of therapeutic areas, mostly in the space of public health. So we basically have a digital platform which can solve various types of health use cases to reach out to large audiences, and overlay that with behavior change content around each of these topics. So that's in a nutshell what Saathealth does. We have a small team, but a very lean team and a very, hopefully, a smart and productive team. And that's what we are going to be talking about today, Shreya. Thanks.
Amazing. So yeah, we've been associated with Saathealth and in fact with Aditi and Akash for some time now. And yeah, I mean, as you guys would know, our talent is remote and part time in many cases. So it was, in fact, Aditi and Akash were one of our earliest clients, and they have been with us for really long now. So it's been great to see how receptive they have been towards in towards all these different and unconventional sorts of working styles. So Aditi, do you want to talk a little bit about how your teams are structured and how you guys work?
Sure. And without giving my age away, I'd like to just tell you all that before Flexibees came about, we had been working with remote teams for already for around 10 years. In fact, one of the first ventures that Akash and I took on together was setting up a regional monitoring group for a big pharma company. And that was close to 20 years back. So that was when we did not have the kind of smartphones that we have access to, the kind of technology that we have access to, fantastic webinar and online video conferencing solutions. We used to have to go to a Reliance store and do video conferencing. So these were those days. But that's when it all started, because we realized early on that it doesn't make sense to have people tied to locations and tap into talent which is only available at certain locations. So once we realized that, I think all our efforts have been that we want to work with the best people that there are. They should be the best set of skills and people we have the maximum chemistry with. Location should not and should never be a barrier to working with the best people. And that's pretty much the philosophy that's driven us through this journey. What
Awesome.
about you, Shreya? Why don't you tell us about what drove you to the solution like Flexibees?
Right. So I think for us, it all started with wanting to enable opportunities for really talented women who made the choice or had to drop out of the traditional workforce. This is something that we felt very strongly about, the three of us in the co-founding team, myself, Rashmi, and Deepa, and all three of us. So in fact, it arrested our imagination so much that we decided we had to do something about it. And I think of course, we then started talking to businesses, and we realized that there is such a huge benefit that this kind of
Absolutely.
talent and these kinds of models can bring to businesses, for startups, for growing businesses, even for larger organizations. In fact, so then, yeah, that's what started us. And we, because remote and part-time flexibility is baked into our solution, we never even thought that we could be any other way. For us, it was always remote first. It was not even a matter of discussion. We like to, employ people from our own pool. In fact, so all of our team is, kick-ass pool of. Most of them are returning mothers. They all work remotely from their own homes across different cities. In fact, my co-founders are in Singapore, so we've been a remote co-founding team as well. So it wasn't even so much a choice, really, in the way that we work. We've always been remote first. Yeah. So,
No, makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So, tell me, but then, I know that you guys have been working remotely, and like you said, for really long, and you guys have had, multi-country remote structures and multi-city remote structures. So, what are the kinds of challenges that are there in working this way?
Sure. I think the first and the biggest challenge is the way the organization perceives remote working. Especially if you're going back to my previous experience of being in a large company, if you have a supportive organization structure and your bosses and whoever's leading the organization is supportive, that's a huge
Yeah.
plus point.
Yeah.
The minute they are on your side, then it makes it very easy to
Mm.
set up all the systems. The second set of challenges is around setting up the processes and systems. And I think looking at it not as something that is a separate unit, like, oh, these are the people who work from home or these are the people who work remotely, but integrating all of this into your basic set of SOPs that you have for the organization. So
Mm.
that's the second set of challenges, to mainstream the entire
Mm.
process of remote working.
Mm. Mm.
And the third set of challenges, which we are still honestly struggling with, is to maintain the people connect even while
Mm.
everyone is working remotely.
Mm.
Because, ultimately, what forms the backbone of an organization is the people. And you can work so much better when you have that
Mm.
personal connect with your co-workers. And
Mm.
that's always a bit of a challenge. I mean, however much you can achieve with technology, you can't get that same feeling that you get when you're just sitting around with all your colleagues and having coffee. So that bit continues to be a challenge, and we continue to try and find ways around that.
Yeah, yeah, you guys do a lot of interesting things around it as well. So we'll come to that. But before
Sure.
that, yeah, now getting to the building of the culture of productivity. So what do you think is a culture of productivity? How do you guys define productivity?
So for us, I think there is a core concept of accountability, which has to be at the foundation of even achieving productivity.
Mm.
Because I mean, it links up to remote working and even any sort of work culture. If you, as an individual or as a team, do not realize the importance of accountability of the work that you do and the actions that you take while you're working, then there is, whatever you do, you're never going to be completely efficient and productivity. I mean, you're not going to be able to achieve productivity.
Mm.
So accountability as a philosophy and as a core sort of value within your work culture is very important.
Mm.
Once you achieve that, or you impress that, the importance of that within the team, then everything sort of
Mm.
flows from that. I'm not sure if you've had a similar experience as well.
Yeah, for us, I mean, definitely. a lot of it, accountability also has two, three parts. I agree, actually. The culture of
Mm.
productivity has a lot to do with ownership, with
Yeah,
accountability. We absolutely don't believe in, measuring the number of hours. I mean,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
the other end of that,
absolutely. Yeah.
the diametrically opposite end of that, that
Mm.
concept.
Yeah,
So, yeah, with accountability comes, the focus on outcome, on
yeah,
deliverables, which is what is ideal. And yeah, absolutely, that is how I would also define, or we would also define, because yeah, the hours just don't matter at all if you're getting the work done. Mm.
yeah. And I think the next step is just setting the processes in place so you can, streamline ways to measure and monitor, the
Mm.
output. And it should be fair. Everyone has a separate set of variables that impact the way they work, the nature of the function that
Mm.
they're doing in the organization. So once you have all those variables built into your monitoring structure,
Mm.
once that is done, then it becomes easy to measure outcomes and know if somebody is being productive or not. And
Right.
again, it's a moving target because all of us, I mean, irrespective of, I'm sure, CEOs of the best company, we all have our bad days. We all have our bad phases. I mean, we've all been through these times when we are super productive, we do
Mm.
great work. At the same time, there are times when, we've hit rock bottom and we
Yeah.
don't know how to go forward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah, that's an important part of,
yeah.
understanding that we
Yeah.
are going to go through this. It's
Yeah.
fine to come out of it,
Yeah.
get back.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is a, a productivity also perhaps is not always measurable on a day-to-day basis. I mean, productivity is also, and the culture, that's where the culture aspect comes from. I mean, it is a midterm thing. You have to think about, you may be down a day, for example,
Yeah,
that's okay. But in the interest of being able to get back to work with a bang, it's important perhaps to take that one day off, or take those couple of days off. So that's a very important point.
yeah,
That,
yeah.
so you're saying basically, creating the expectation, and sort of rallying the team around the culture of accountability,
Yeah.
and then setting processes around it is basically what has worked for you guys.
Yeah, and each process has to also then be accompanied by appropriate tools to measure the outcomes and some sort of a risk management component to it. That okay, here's what's going wrong. We're not able to achieve this because of these obstacles. How do we overcome them?
Mm.
So that entire sequence of events has to be mapped out. Everyone has to know that okay, if we get stuck here, this is what we do. If we get stuck here, this is what we do. So
Okay.
I mean, so honestly, again, coming from a clinical research background
Mm.
helps a lot because
Mm.
you try and replicate what happens in a lab to what happens in a hospital to what's happening in
Mm.
real life. So at every stage, you're scaling higher and higher and reaching more and more people. So
Mm.
you get to a point where okay, this is what's going to go wrong. Okay, when we go here, this is what's going to go wrong, and
Mm.
that's how you mitigate for all of
No,
these.
that's amazing. So you guys have that level of planning built into your daily working, or your day-to-day working, that
Yeah,
everybody has an idea of what is it that they could do if something went wrong. And
absolutely.
oh, okay, that's great. That's
So I
great.
think planning for scale should be default.
Mm.
No matter, I mean, right now we're a really small team, but and we're handling a lot of work simultaneously. But
Mm.
we're only able to do that because we try and streamline all our work and processes so
Mm.
well that we have to maintain that balance of
Mm.
being lean yet being very efficient.
Yeah, and I
So
think
this is are
that,
important.
yeah. Yeah, and from what actually, so I can think of a couple of things from what you are saying. One thing that's overwhelmingly coming to me from what you're saying is that planning in general is important. So, there is
Yeah.
that is an investment that will go far, especially if you're running a remote or a blended team. So that's, yeah. So, and the other thing that, now that we have hired for you guys, we've been hiring partner to you guys. The thing that strikes me is that, and it's similar for us too, which is why I think it's interesting, is that you guys hire. you want to hire accurately for the role. Because I see a lot of startups where the hiring is or the job description is a bit vague. It is a
Hmm.
little amorphous. So a good the thinking, the philosophy is that somebody good who comes in can perhaps be stretched along various different kinds of functions, and
Yeah.
maybe that works for certain startups and for certain kinds of businesses. But for you guys, I've seen that you guys want to hire the right people for the right role. So does that have a role to play in the whole productivity equation?
It does, but more than that, what helps is not to have the roles limit the individual, because we have seen, and again, in a startup environment, it is important that everybody have a say in everything, because you're so interdependent. All
Mm.
the functions sort of impact each other's work. So, I mean, for example, I can't have a content team that does not understand how the content
Mm.
is being disseminated via the app. They
Mm.
have to understand how the app
Right.
works, how the content is
Yeah.
uploaded onto the app, and
Yeah.
vice versa. If the development team doesn't understand how the content is supposed to look and feel on the app, they're not going to be able to make tweaks to the system. So,
Right.
partly being very specific in selecting the right person for the role is important, but at the same time, it's also important to, at least we feel that it's important to hire someone who has certain degree of flexibility around
Mm.
their role, so that they can pitch in and
Mm.
participate in other things. It helps them also, because
Yeah.
you want to do the same thing day in and day out. I mean, you
Mm.
will reach a point where you will
Mm.
find it boring. So I
Right.
think that's a great way to build a career path, is to
Mm.
diversify the kind of
Very
work that
interesting.
you do.
That's very interesting. That's
Yeah.
that's a great point. Okay. And it also, of course, it leads to ownership in the company's goals, not
Yeah.
just what you are doing as a function, but in what the company is able to achieve with your contribution in that function. Okay,
True.
that's
I
amazing.
think one more thing that's very important here is, there are people who have, they may have the right attitude, they may not have the necessary skill sets,
Mm.
but if the attitude is right, I think some of the skill sets can be built in. You
Mm.
can train someone to communicate really well or write really well,
Mm.
if they have the attitude to learn and to
Mm.
compress information in the right way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
some of these things also is again a matter of planning and foresight, where you see a person and you know that, hey,
yeah,
I mean, this is
yeah,
not the limit; they can do so much more. So I
yeah,
think just picking
yeah,
up on those right individuals. We've
yeah,
been lucky to have
yeah.
worked with some excellent colleagues, and we continue to work with a fabulous team at Saathealth. So all of these guys are capable of doing so much more than what we actually hired them for. So
Brilliant,
it's great.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's your hiring experience been when it comes
yeah.
to fulfilling for certain skill sets vis-a-vis the location?
Um, so yeah, I mean, going back to the point you made earlier that we want to hire the best person for the job instead of having to constrain the hiring by the location. I mean,
Hmm.
we have very live examples of that. I mean, day in and day out, we see it happening for our clients. And even for us, we've hired the great people from locations which were not employable, really, which didn't have so many, industries or presence of organizations. And such a shame to have
Hmm.
people, with all that talent, that talent not being used. It's really wasteful for everyone, for the economy, and for that individual, for organizations who are letting go of that talent and having to hire perhaps somebody who is suboptimal, but just because they are in a
Yeah.
vicinity where they can visit your office.
Hmm.
So that we see very, very live cases of that happening with us every day. And in fact, for us, actually, hiring is a very big part of, or hiring right is a very big part of, building the culture of productivity. Yeah. So, like you said, hiring the right people who, of course, they're great at what they do. That is really important for us as well. But also that they have some inherent sense of ownership, drive, accountability, all of those things. So we actually, we are a hiring company, and so we actually have kind of now figured out what it is that we should look for when we are, hiring people.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
that
do appreciate the fact that you guys take a lot of trouble in understanding not just the role, but also the culture of the organization and how an individual would fit into that culture before you
yeah,
even make recommendations. And that actually personalizes the whole experience
yeah,
for your partners. So we
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that of course. I mean, some people. I mean, that all can always happen. That some people are great, but they may not be great fits for a
Mhm.
particular kind of
Correct.
organization. So that's always important. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, for us, hiring right is a very very crucial part of building that culture, because we absolutely want to trust the person who comes in from day one. I mean, we want to operate from a stance of great trust. Our thing is, trust them to do the job that you're giving to them. And we all, and I personally, okay, let me speak for myself, hate any sort of monitoring. I mean, beyond, of course, I mean, when you're talking about certain functions, so I'm not talking about, like sales kinds of KPIs, etc. Monitoring whether a person is working or not, it's so, such a waste of time for, for people who have big things to do and big things to achieve. Why should anybody be spending time in monitoring people who are, working for them? And the argument that a face-to-face environment allows you to do that is also a very strange argument to me, because why would you be spending time even in a face-to-face environment
Correct.
having to monitor whether people are working or not? I mean, that's just a
And it's equally tiring for an employer because
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to spend all my energy and time tracking,
yeah,
oh, did this person clock in 8 hours
yeah,
today or 6 hours today or 5 hours?
yeah,
So I mean, it's not worth it. That's
yeah,
why having them responsible for outcomes and taking accountability
yeah,
for their function and their tasks,
yeah,
function and their outcomes rather than the tasks is a better way to get them to be more productive, and for us to not have to
yeah,
worry about clocking in
yeah,
time and watching them.
absolutely,
Although we
absolutely.
do feel sometimes responsible for, there are different types of people. We have seen that there are people who love, blue sky thinking. They love
Mm,
not being given any boundaries and just,
mm,
being able to do everything the way they want.
mm,
But there are many others who like that structure. I
mm,
mean, they need something to start their day with
mm,
and something to end the day, so that they feel like, okay, I have done this today. I have
mm.
checked off so many things, and the latter is higher in proportion, like it or not, than the former, which is why
Uh,
so many of us have always, believed in that whole,
mm,
factory culture of clocking in and clocking out.
mm,
Kind
yeah,
of thing. So the challenge is to build an organization that allows for both of these types to coexist and
yeah.
flourish, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think choice is a very big part of it. And in fact, with you guys, I would say also that because you're running blended teams, so so I would say that in fact, blended teams very much speaks to me, to the individual's choice as well, to choose the way they want to work. If they want to work in a, say, an office environment, and that is how they derive energy, then so be it. But if they prefer and they think they'll be more productive working remotely, then that's the best way for them to work. Because I feel like this debate of whether how whether office environments are better than remote environments also comes down to what the individual is best comfortable with and what their life stage is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so a
That's
company.
true. That's true.
Yeah,
Actually, when we were young and we were in like an MNC big company, we could never understand these people who wanted to arrive at 9:30 a.m. sharp and leave at 5:30 p.m. sharp. And when we sort of had kids and started our family,
yeah,
and then we realized how
yeah,
we were so clueless about what the other half of the population goes through. But
yeah,
it's all about understanding the other person's perspective and being able to
yeah, yeah.
support them in their journey. So
Absolutely, and that's where the hiring right comes from for us, because if once you know that the person is going to give it their best and they're going to bring their best to the job, then you leave them
true.
to work the way that they want to work,
Yeah.
uh, where they feel they can best add value.
Yeah.
So yeah. So in all of this, what role do you think that leadership has to play in building a culture of productivity, or yeah, how do you guys keep yourselves productive? That's the second part of my question.
So I think it's very important that you walk the talk, and both Akash and I are also we've had great people that we have worked with, leaders who have taught us to be accountable for our work, and so we think it's our responsibility to also teach the next lot of people who come and work with us the same kind of uh, you know. Um, stress on accountability and making sure you're taking responsibility for what you do.
Mm.
So it's, if you don't live and breathe it all the time, it shows up somehow or the other. So if I tell someone who joins that, look, I don't care what time to what time you work, as long as you're able to
Mm.
do this much work per week,
Mm.
that's fine. But I can't then pull them up if they don't clock in to the
Mm.
stand-ups every morning at 10 a.m. sharp, or if they want to leave early some days because they have a personal commitment that they have to look after. So it's important, because I think if you don't follow through on what you believe in
Mm.
and the way you function, so if I'm not able to make it, I apologize to the team saying that, look, I have some things happening this week,
Mm.
I'm going to be in and out, but here's what we can do as backup, or here's who you can reach in case you
Mm.
can't reach me. So you have to sort of live and breathe what you preach,
Yeah.
and want others to follow. Uh, the second in line is very important too in this case. So the leaders within our group are also sort of, they pick up on the same culture. So they
Mm.
realize that they can't have us behaving a particular way and them behaving a different way. So they also have to take up that mantle, and
Yeah.
that's how it propagates.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
so, so it just passes on from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
You're creating that culture. You're passing it on.
yeah.
It's like the whole mafia culture. You create
Mhm.
this, and they take it on further on wherever they go. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So one
amazing.
of the scariest things I've heard, especially during this period where people have been sort of forced to work from home, has been, oh, but this is not here to stay. So let's manage the way we can in
Mm.
this period, and once things are back to normal, and I don't have the heart to tell them that maybe the normal that's going to come after this is going to be very different from the normal that we're used to, and
Mm.
not just because of the pandemic or what we've seen in the last 8 to 10 months, but because that's how we're evolving as a working society. We are not chained to our desks anymore. We are chained to devices instead. So things are moving very quickly. So we just need to be on top of the trends and make sure that the work culture adapts to that
Yeah,
appropriately.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, I mean, as far as the role of leadership, a lot of this actually, all that we spoke of, that is leadership driven. Also, the fact that you have a certain hiring philosophy, the fact that you have clear expectations from from the role that people are doing. You the fact, even the smallest of things, that there is an induction, and I am surprised because we again are in the with being in the business of hiring, we also get to have a little peek at how others are running their businesses. And it seems like a very simple thing, but it doesn't always happen in every organization, that you bring in a new person and you take them through not just what their role is supposed to be, but also what your organization is all about, what it stands for, how you guys do things, some of those things which are also so important to breathe life into that role. So even those little things, then of course, like you said, processes and all of that. But I think mostly, as far as I think our biggest say, or the interesting thing about leadership that I find with respect to us at FlexiBees is the three of us in the co-founding team, our camaraderie. I feel like the
Mhm.
three of us have a very we are a very strong and cohesive unit, which
Yeah.
again is so important. And of course, with you and Akash, I would also like to know how you manage the whole, cohesiveness across your businesses and your personal life. It's a whole different kettle of fish. But with us, I think the fact that we are very strong, as our friendship is strong, our equation is strong. I think that results in good decisions, stable decisions, which again flows through the team and gives the team a lot of clarity. And some of these things are also
Yeah,
very integral to making your people productive. I mean, you
true.
you you have to give them the right input and the right environment for them to flourish. So yeah.
So
So
for
how?
us, it's the same as parenting. You have to
Mhm.
have a united front. We like teasing our team that we deal with you the same way we deal with your son. So we make sure that at least the two of us are on the same page. But jokes apart, I think so. We've had a longer working relationship together than we have had a marriage together, and that
Mm,
always helps because we've been able to, we've run this group that I talked about that we had set up when we were a part of Big Pharma was something that we had set up together. So this was way
mm,
back 20 years
mm,
ago. So we have had time to fine tune the way that we work, the way we sort of give a common message and lay a common sort of evolve a common culture with the organization that we have been
mm,
setting up, organizations that we have set up
mm,
together. So I think that has always helped a lot. We do have a common value system, which we got from the
mm,
first organization we worked with. So that's always sort of been the foundation for us. I think you, Rashmi, and Deepa are similar, right? You're very influenced by your first organization. So it does form the basis of how you think about work and corporate life.
yeah. Yeah, though we did not work in the same organization, but similar kinds of organizations and
Right, right.
places. And of course, our breeding ground or our playing ground was our B school. So
Right.
you not only learn a lot about how to manage work, but you also build very strong sort of interpersonal bonds in a business
Yeah.
school environment. Of course, in even grad in your grad, but also I think these schools also are like the high acid test of relationships. So people do tend to really build strong bonds. In
Hmm.
fact, my husband is from my B school, so my B school stint was really productive. I found my
Yeah.
my co-founders, my husband.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, yeah, those 2 years were very well spent
Yeah.
for me. So
That-
now coming to some of these things that you do, which I think I mentioned you spoke of earlier, some of these bonding activities, they're very interesting to us, and we always learn from them, and we are yet to really implement them ourselves. But why don't you talk about those things that you guys do to create the bonding and the interaction?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we've always held on to right from our early days of setting up teams is to have regular offsites. And offsites don't just mean that you take everyone away and talk more about work, but you actually take them away and do something that you do together that helps you, build a bond as a team. So just these offsites were almost a regular feature in all the companies that we have set up, despite times when there were serious financial constraints. I mean, taking off a 40-member team to another location where you're paying for food and stay, etc. was
Mm,
not easy. But I mean, that was always something we prioritized because
mm,
the minute you're able to build that bond, it's worth far more than the investment that goes into the time that you take off for
yeah,
that. So I
yeah.
think that's always been a huge part of our working in remote teams. Having this time, we used to do around 3 to 4 of these get-togethers at a time.
Mm,
In the last 2 or 3 years, I think technology has been very useful because it's given us a lot of options. There are a lot of social media platforms that allow for workplace interaction,
mm,
WhatsApp groups, although I don't personally like them a bit. But some of these things have given us options. But whatever we do, we maintain that there has to be some time that's set away for us to bond as a team.
Mm.
I mean, once in 2 weeks, we just do a Friday evening. Everyone
Mm.
gets together on Zoom and plays Antakshari. Or
Ah.
it doesn't have to be very complicated. It doesn't have to be very
Mm.
fancy. You don't have to call trainers from
Mm.
abroad and so on. It just has to be time that you devote,
Mm.
to each other.
Mm.
Similarly, I think the other learning that's been important for us has been to involve family, especially when we've been running small teams,
Mm.
because they do, no matter, they do influence who you are, the way
Mm.
you work also. So just having families, children, spouses, a part of these get-togethers
Mm.
strengthens the team a lot because it gets your personal connect to a different,
Mm.
and then that if something's not right, maybe it's this that's bothering them.
Mm.
You get to know them as individuals, and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
now just as your colleagues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So so
these are
important.
just some of the things that have helped us a lot.
Yeah.
But I think basically it boils down to having really good chemistry with your team.
Mm.
I mean, if you have that, you can pretty much, like you have with Deepa and Rashmi.
Mm.
I think if you have that, there's just, I mean, you can conquer the world.
Yeah. And that chemistry is a good word because it actually puts responsibility on both ends of the
Yes,
spectrum. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, great, great. I think this is great. This has been a great conversation. I'm debating whether we should do a sort of summary for maybe a couple of people who came in late. So, if you have to say that, what are the two, three things, top two, three things that help you guys in building the culture of productivity, then what would those things be?
I think the most important thing is building in very robust processes for all the work that we do, so
Hmm.
that the work is not person dependent. The process flows even if you take people out of the equation. So in that case, even if you're working remotely or some days your internet is really bad, and it doesn't stop, so the engine keeps running. So I think processes are extremely important. And the second bit is building a culture of accountability. That's
Hmm.
what we talked about. I think I've gone on and on and on about it. But the
Very
minute you
important.
have
Yeah.
that, I think efficiencies and productivity just follows. It's
Yeah.
it's it's the core requirement for that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. For us, I think the most important thing would be hiring the right way. I think, or rather, I would not more than most important is the first thing. It's the first step of the journey that you hire in a way that the person is a good fit for the role and has the bit of extra something, the drive and the ownership to really really take on what is being given to them and make it into something magical. And
hmm,
the second thing would be, of course, creating that environment which would include processes, clarity of the
yeah,
role, clarity of the job, the right feedback mechanisms, the hard work, basically laying the
yeah,
groundwork, the
yeah,
pipe,
yeah,
the foundations of the organization. And I think the third thing which you guys also spoke about was really respect for them as people, and which there are many different ways of doing that, and understanding where they are in their lives, and keeping that in mind through it all, because if the individual is not happy, they won't be productive. If they don't
exactly.
feel,
Yeah,
yeah, they don't feel listened to, then they will not do the stellar job that you've hired them to do. So I think for even to get to the goals that businesses aspire to, it's very important to see people as people first, and then
yeah.
them
And
as
the converse is true as well. If they're happy and if they really feel passionately about the work that they do, then there's really no
yeah,
limit to
no
kind of
stopping them.
things
Yeah,
that you can get
yeah,
done. So
yeah.
it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's so great as founders when you see that in your team, right? When you see that spark of somebody
Yeah,
who you've hired who wants to go the extra mile, and without you having to tell them. I mean, that's beautiful,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
beautiful. That's just magic.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really gratifying.
Yeah.
That is true.
Great. Great. Let's just see if there are any questions over here. Hmm. What is this? Who should have answered onboarding program? Any good books on building remote teams? That's by Rajagopalan C. Do you have any in mind?
So, an honest confession: I only read fiction.
That's so refreshing to hear.
Yeah. So I draw all my management lessons from a non-existent MBA and my experiences with all the organizations I've worked for, and from parenting two boys. I think that's pretty much where I've learned it all.
That's
so so
on
I'm
the
not
job.
the right person to ask for books to read. I'm sorry.
Absolutely on the job, and of course, on one of the hardest jobs of all, which is to parent two kids, two young kids at the same time. I mean, both of them being young at the same time.
Yeah.
My God, yeah. No, I mean, I also don't know. So I do read non-fiction as well, but somehow I've never really read anything on how to build remote teams. Like I said, it was very intuitive to us
Yeah.
to, make it remote. Yeah. So we didn't ever have to go and take the help of books, but it's an interesting question. Maybe we'll do a post on it at some point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we can ask back with people we work with, and if they have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
suggestions, we can write back to you if
Yeah.
that's okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Or
Great.
maybe it's something we should think about writing together.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, that'll be so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's pretty unheard of. People write a lot about their own organizations, but a
Yeah, I'd
co
love to. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty
whenever we
lovely.
get a breather,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If that's the condition,
then it will happen.
that's not gonna happen anytime very
Yeah.
soon. Okay. Any other questions? Uh, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes. So, yeah, curious to know. I think this thing is, I didn't ask specifically because it was kind of covered, but it's since we are waiting. What are one or two of the things that you look for when you're hiring? Say specifically one, two things that you look for, if at all something comes to mind.
So obviously, someone who's got more or less the right ingredients to make a success of the role that we are hiring for.
Mm.
That's basic. The second thing, which is very important, is this person willing to learn and grow? Because we really believe that you should hire not someone who's ready for the role, but someone who wants to be there and wants to work towards getting there. Because
Mm.
that's when you feel the maximum sort of satisfaction. You've seen someone really grow into a role rather than come
Yeah.
ready-made and packaged. Then there's
Yeah.
no challenge, or it's not as much fun for them.
Mm.
And the third thing, obviously, is team chemistry. It's very important to us.
Uh,
And one of our hiring practices is to, once we have been through the initial interviews, to just get that person in for coffee with the entire team, and then
ah.
see how it, just very casual coffee,
Mm.
and just all of us hanging out together, and see
Wow.
how that person fits in. So
Yeah.
that's always been a great test. I am giving away all my secrets. When I hire someone and call them over for coffee, they're not going to come.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't really fake that interaction. It's a very
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
has to be spontaneous.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
works both ways. This way, we get our team's opinion as well on
Mm.
what they think of this individual. At the
Mm.
same time, we see how the individual fits in within the team.
Mm. Amazing. Oh, we actually have one question that I missed seeing earlier. So again from Rajagopalan C, should we prefer to hire folks who have worked remotely before? What do you say?
I think if we have, uh, in my experience, people who have done anything that they've done on their own,
Mm.
it could be a project, it could be just setting up a new, thing, anything that shows that they have been self-motivated and self-driven. That's a surefire way of knowing that these people are going to be able to work no matter where you place them and where they work from, they're going to be able to make a success of it.
Mm.
So that's a good indicator. So, for example, one of the people who works in our team, she had set up an NGO along with her family, and we know that for someone at her age to do that, that's a testament
Mm.
that she can make things happen. So
Yeah.
we look for these kind of things actually as indicators of
Mm.
a successful hire.
So basically, remote hiring, if this is to be seen in that context, raises the bar in a way, you know.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah. So if you're hiring for, say, an office, then you may think that, okay, we'll figure how to make them be self-starters, but that
yeah,
eventually doesn't work out. It's
yeah,
another thing. But remote hiring, from the very beginning, you have that bar that they should have an element of being self-motivated.
yeah, yeah. It's important.
Yeah, that's great. I think for us, we don't sometimes, maybe for certain roles, yes, but I don't actively, for us, our internal teams, remember thinking that they should have worked remotely before, because for us it's, the whole the life stage which is important to us, that we are hiring from, which is, a lot of our teams, like I said, is our mothers who are returning to work. That life stage, in fact, I feel to some extent, you know takes care of it, because the motivation to make it work is so high.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so, because, I feel like, when people say that, mothers, or won't be committed. In fact, one of the earliest triggers for why we got passionate about this was an experience that one of us had, with a hiring manager, who said that, as a mother, will you be committed enough to give your best, or will you be available at 1 o'clock at night? Those kinds of things, I find them so ridiculous. So,
yeah,
because for me, it's always been the other way around in all of the hiring that we've done, or in most of the hiring that we've done, even including for our clients, where mothers are so committed to prove that they are the best people for the job.
yeah,
And of course, remote is, something that allows them to come to work every day, and to, be the people that they set out to be in the first place. So I think that takes care of it. So
yeah.
we don't really have to have that thing of having worked remotely before, to answer this.
Although I do think what's important is if you are starting off an engagement with someone who's going to be working remotely for you, I think it does make sense to allow for some time for both sort of parties to adjust. Because with everything, there is a rhythm that you establish and you start working smoothly. But it does take some
Yeah.
initial hiccups, how often do you want to do calls? What is the best way to communicate? Is it WhatsApp? Is it email? Do we have to do lengthy calls, or can we do very short stand-ups in the morning? So these kind of things, I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit of time. So I think rather than planning how to hire someone remotely, it's what you do once you hire and how much time you give for that relationship
Yeah,
work out.
absolutely. So that in fact brings me to the second question, which is the, I didn't understand this earlier, but the question actually is onboarding program for remote roles. So what would you say? Would you?
Great one, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think what's absolutely critical in this is laying down the communication framework. The minute you know that there is going to be a role that is going to be functioning remotely, you need to put some rules in place that, here's how we are going to communicate on a weekly basis.
Mm.
Here's how we are going to tell you what are the things you have to do. Here are the other colleagues that you have to liaise with on a regular basis, and just figure out a way to communicate so that they integrate well with the team.
Mm.
And that initial framework is, we've made mistakes there. I'm not sort of ashamed to admit, and that has helped when we have realized that that was a mistake and corrected it
Mm.
subsequently. That okay, next time onwards we will not make this mistake again.
Mm.
We'll make sure right from the beginning we tell them, here are the things that we will do. Here is the regularity with which we will
Mm.
communicate. So that initial establishment of a communication
Mm.
framework is very important. That
Yeah.
does help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the same for us. So, unlike you, I mean, or you, your personal opinion of WhatsApp, we actually are very WhatsApp, friendly.
Hmm.
We are WhatsApp first as a company. So,
Hmm.
in fact, apart from the induction and everything else, we have actually teams on WhatsApp. So, we would have groups which are for specific to that function, for example. And when we induct somebody, we, step by step keep including them into the group that makes sense for them
Right.
to be part
Right.
of at that point of the of their time in the company. So
Right.
that, yeah, that actually ties back to the communication point and knowing, having while remote working can be isolated, it helps to have even a virtual sort of environment around you, which some of these things create.
Yeah.
So if you need a quick sort of question answered,
Yeah.
you should be able to quickly maybe reach out to someone and have
Yeah.
a response come to you
Yeah. Yeah.
really quickly, instead of having to call somebody, which while that's always encouraged for something which is a deeper question or a deeper
Hmm.
conversation. This To my mind, this kind of mimics the in-office environment, where you can just sort of get up from your desk and ask whoever is around what it is that you want to know, and very quickly have a response coming back. So
Right.
yeah, that is something that we do.
Yeah.
And of course, communication, yeah, is so critical. We tell, in fact, for the people that we place, for our consultants that we place across different companies, we actually do a little bit of an induction, which is
Hmm.
an agnostic to the company induction.
Yeah.
It's basically best practices of working remotely.
Right.
And we talk about the importance of communication, because that's the one thing that sometimes people don't realize, that from an in-office environment, if you're going to a remote environment, you have to over communicate.
Yeah.
If you're in two minds whether to say something or not, you should always say it. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
in two minds whether to update or whether to ask, then you should always update and
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
ask. So some of that sensibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Mm.
think with remote teams as well as with blended teams, over communication is always a safe bet. It's
Yeah.
fine if you've sent an email and sent a WhatsApp reminder that, hey, I've
Yeah.
sent an email, please check the email. It's
Yeah.
fine because
Yeah.
sometimes people do miss it and
Yeah.
they do, not realize that, oh, there was a call and, oh, we missed this.
Yeah.
It's fine to over communicate. I think it's absolutely okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's encouraged to, I would say, a little
yeah,
bit of
yeah,
over communication. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I think that's about it. We have answered all the questions. Okay,
Great.
great. Thanks so much, Aditi, again.
Thank
Wonderful
you. It
talking to
was
you.
lovely chatting with you.
And
Happy to answer any further questions if they come
yeah,
up later.
sure. Yeah, we pass them on. And great. And we always learn from you guys.
Same
Uh,
here. Same here.
okay, great.
Actually,
Well,
one of the things that I thought after seeing what FlexiBees does was back when 20 years back when we had set up that remote monitoring group, we had to hire and manage a lot of people, and I used to keep thinking that, oh, I wish these guys were around then because it would have made life so much simpler, because all
so
the processes we thought of putting in place, we saw you already doing it. So
awesome.
kudos.
That's high endorsement. I mean, I absolutely learn from you guys. And everything that you've said today, I'm going to think back on it, because I think there's some really, really important, smart things over there that we should also be doing.
Yeah, let's think about the book too.
Yeah, let's
I think
get
there's
on the
something
radar.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Aditi.
you, and thanks to the audience.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
a lot, everyone. Bye
Thanks a
bye.
lot for coming. Bye bye.